He's often been described as one of the most energetic and dynamic ministers in the government. And as we continue to analyze 1 year of the Narendra Modi government, we're joined now by the Minister for Power, Coal and Renewable Energy. As I said, someone who's been described as a doer. Piyush Goyal is joining us on the program this evening. Welcome to the Buck Stops here, Mr. Goyal. Let me start by asking you to briefly identify what you would call your ministry's singular biggest achievement. What gives you the most satisfaction?
I think the biggest satisfaction is that the world today believes the power sector is back on track. Over the years, people had lost hope on this sector. There were problems with fuel, both coal and gas. There were problems with transmission and distribution. There was absolutely no great deal of focus on renewable energy. In all sectors, we have achieved historic performance in terms of actual outputs in the last 1 year, more particularly in 10 months of that year when we were in power. And we have brought back an excitement to invest in this sector. Today, as we speak, all the agony of power shortages, power outages, lack of coal in power plants are all a thing of the past. I've written to state governments asking them to buy more power. I've written to state governments if they need more coal, we can supply it.
Yeah.
It's a sector which is rolling as we speak.
I'm glad you've brought up the issue of states and how they need to buy the power. And I bring this up, Piyush Goyal, because it's the peak of summer. And there are still places and people across the country that are reeling from enforced power cuts. Now, these cuts are not taking place because there's a shortage of power. In fact, there's a surplus of power, as you have repeatedly said yourself. And I want to read out to you two statements that you made. On the 29th of April, you found that there was so much surplus power at 3:30 p.m. in the day that power was actually available at what you call 0 rupee per unit. The next day, you told Parliament that despite this surplus power, the sad part is the states are not acquiring or buying power. The question then is, Mr. Goyal, despite this surplus power, despite the fact that there's cheap power available, if the states are not buying, if the discoms are in the red, how does it benefit the consumer? How does it benefit you and me sitting at home reeling from these power cuts?
Barka, you need to separate the two questions, the states buying power and the discoms in the red. As regards the states buying power, they have to provide for adequate power to serve the people of their state.
So why are they not buying?
Farmers need power to get adequate water.
Why are the states not buying?
So some of the states, well, it's not that all states are not buying. So today Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, Maharashtra, Chhattisgarh, all of these are states which have sufficient power.
These are all
they are buying power
BJP
as and
states.
when they need it.
Sir, these are all coincidentally
That's the
BJP
states which are...
states.
Barka, they are the states who are serving the people and therefore the people keep voting them back in. The sad part is that states which are not buying power either are not concerned about the service that they need to give to their farmers, to their poor people, the people in the villages. Alternately, some of the state discoms haven't been doing too well. Take the case of Rajasthan, for example. Vasundhara Raje ji became Chief Minister in 2013. She was out of power for 5 years. In 2008, she left behind a robust electric infrastructure where power was being given to all. Farmers were getting adequate power and the discoms were in good shape. In 5 years, the Congress accumulated nearly 70,000 crores of losses at a run rate when she came into government of nearly 14,000 crores. Now imagine the agony of that state, which is rampant with power cuts, power theft, transmission distribution losses, and she has to struggle now to once again bring the sector back to good health. Fortunately, the central government and the state of Rajasthan are working in tandem. Power cuts this year are far less than what she had inherited.
Yeah.
Going forward, we've drawn up a roadmap, how we'll take that state to 24/7 power. We are working to a plan to improve efficiency of the discom, bring down interest costs, reduce or eliminate power theft, bring in energy efficiency to reduce the requirements of power, separate the transmission grid so that there's a separate line for the farmers and they get adequate and timely power,
Yeah.
And power is not misused in that line.
Am I hearing you suggest that the non-BJP states are deliberately not purchasing power, are deliberately keeping their people suffering from power cuts?
I don't necessarily need to allege anything at this stage, but I'm sure the people, for example, of Uttar Pradesh or the people of Bihar would like to ask their state governments, why are you not buying enough power when it is available? Why are you not producing more power in your thermal stations where there is huge amount of stock of coal, and the government and Coal India is saying we can send you more coal should you desire. So I would think the people of those states, people of states which are reeling with power outages, should demand from their state governments accountability for not giving them power.
Mr. Goyal, the argument has also been made that when cheap power goes back to the grid and it is available at, let's say, less than 1 rupee per unit, how does that benefit the consumer when the discoms are not willing to put their money, in a sense, backing this cheap power? The argument has been made that only big industrial houses are benefiting. The consumer is not benefiting even though this cheap power is available. So if there are no buyers, how is this benefiting the consumer?
Well, Barkha, one thing I can assure you that Prime Minister Modi's government, no big industrial house can benefit. After all, if we have been able to bring down the power tariffs in the power exchange to less than 50%, I think it's the big industrialists who are suffering. I was asked this question yesterday by somebody, why are bottom lines down? I said, well, we brought efficiency into the system, we brought honesty and transparency. And if that was the cause of FT bottom line, then we are happy it is down. So our approach is that every action that we do, we keep the last man at the bottom of the pyramid as our focus. I believe these discoms can be set right with efficiency improvement. They can be set right with a little bit of effort from the state governments. We on our part from the center are happy to support all such initiatives. We are putting in over 100,000 crores through Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gram Jyoti Yojana and IPDS to support the state's efforts. We are happy to look at supporting them in terms of energy efficiency devices like LED street lights, LED bulbs in the homes. Renewable energy can be a sustainable source of power in the long run, which can have microgrids, off-grid solutions, which can have rooftops. There are so many ways by which we can help these states. We can expand the transmission grid in their states if they help us with right-of-way and land. All of this is possible. Every state which comes to the center receives full support from the Modi government. It is theirs for the asking.
Now, you spoke about honesty and transparency, and obviously one of the things that your ministry has overseen are the auctions in the coal sector. And while there is no doubt, Mr. Goyal, that this has been acknowledged as the much more transparent method, there have been questions raised by the opposition, for example, the former Finance Minister P Chidambaram, who's asking you a basic question. He's saying, who is paying these humongous amounts to the central and state governments? Will the cost eventually have to be borne by the consumer, suggesting that eventually these companies who are bidding will have to go to the bank for loans? Their costs are increasing. So once again, it's the consumer that will be paying more for electricity. Now, my question is somewhat different. Do you accept that people of India now have to internalize that perhaps we do have to pay more for electricity? Is the BJP willing to say that the subsidy Raj or the Arvind Kejriwal approach to electricity supply is over, that and a fallout of these coal auctions is that electricity will cost more?
Barkha, I'm amazed at the ignorance of the former finance minister. I would have expected better from you. You are a very avid reader of economics and public policy. I think the auctions were absolutely loud and clear in their intention to actually reduce power tariffs. There was a reverse bidding process for the power producers who were bidding for the coal mines. They were to bid for lower prices in the pass-through of fuel when they generate power and supply power to the discoms. We got very attractive bids who have won these auctions, and the only way is that prices can only come down. There is no provision in the law or in the bidding process that power tariff can ever go up. In fact, it is these same mines which were given free of charge by the UPA government under Finance Minister Chidambaram ji who is supposed to have protected the treasury of the country, the central government, and was responsible to the people to protect national interests and natural resources, who gave away these mines free of charge, then came up with the fancy theory that there is no loss because coal is in the womb of Mother Earth. Yeah. Now the Supreme Court order has also shown that coal was being mined day and night, and nearly 10,000 crore rupees were due from the miners of those coal.
No, there is no disagreement. Sir, there is no disagreement. There is no disagreement that yours was the better, more honest method.
We have charged the corporates, the big corporates whom this party tries to profess as being anti. They were the ones who were pro-corporate, who gave away these mines free. We are the people who are pro-poor people, who brought these mines to serve the eastern states, which are less developed, and also reduce power tariffs for the common man. I think it's very clear who is pro-corporate, the Congress and UPA, who is pro-poor and pro-people, Narendra Modi and the BJP NDA.
And yet Rahul Gandhi keeps saying "Soot boot ki sarkar" to you.
Yeah, but that he can keep saying. There's a Goebbels theory, you can keep trying to say it. Yet your channel rates Prime Minister Modi as having the highest rating that any Prime Minister has had 1 year into office. Yet your channel and everybody else acknowledges he's still by far the most trusted, the most liked and the most admired leader in the country. Yet every opinion poll and survey continues to show that the work done by this government in 1 year is appreciated by the common man. If at all some people are complaining, it's those corporates, those rent seekers who are so used to a cozy government-corporate relationship so that they got freebies from the erstwhile government, which we have stopped.
It's interesting you bring up rent seekers, Mr. Piyush Goyal, because, you know, Naina Lal Kidwai, she made a very interesting statement to our channel. She said that if the Prime Minister can meet with CEOs when he's traveling abroad, why doesn't he meet with corporates at home? So I'm just asking you politically, because I know that you're also a key communications and strategy brains of this government. Do you believe that you're caught in this awkward place where the corporates are unhappy, yet the opposition calls you pro-corporate? So, you know, you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. What would you say to Naina Lal Kidwai's argument?
Not at all. The people of India have already told you what they feel about Prime Minister Modi and how much bharosa, how much trust they have on him. Whatever Mr. Gandhi may say today, he spoke at Mhow, trying to profess some sudden love for, as if he has done some great thing. He has shown his ignorance that it is his family and his government and his party which is the hand behind the failed social welfare programs for the community that Babasaheb Bhimrao Ambedkar wanted to have the upliftment of. He has demonstrated his ignorance, how for years their party kept the poor people and the oppressed and deprived in such a bad state of affairs. So he keeps making statements which don't sell with the people of India. Our work speaks for itself. Now, as far as meeting everybody, I have met Naina Lal Kidwai on ample number of occasions. I have been to every forum in FICCI, CII, ASSOCHAM, PhD Chamber of Commerce, in Mumbai, various chambers, all across the country for that matter. Finance Minister Jaitley is talking to everybody. Prime Minister Modi meets delegations when they come to him. Different delegations from corporates in India have met him. I am surprised that Ms. Kidwai has sought to say that, but I wish she would apply or request for an appointment. Prime Minister Modi is always a ear for good ideas, for ideas which can help the poor of India improve their life, for ideas which are towards a corruption-free India, towards a welfare of the common man of India.
You know, I saw you reacting at the BJP headquarters, speaking to the media to what Rahul Gandhi had said on the Ambedkar issue. But he's raising a students group being de-recognized in the IIT in Chennai. He's saying that even an Ambedkar students group isn't allowed freedom of speech. So any thoughts on that before we come back to the economy?
Well, at the outset, we did not have any role to play in that. It is an autonomous body. IIT, you are well aware, and your channel has run many stories about the autonomy of IITs. Any decision taken by IIT is an autonomous decision. If he's playing on the fact that that particular group had a particular name to it, I think it's very unfortunate.
Mr. Goyal, I want to...
That is what is divisive politics, Barkha, by the way. Our party believes in Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas. We never play this kind of downright low-grade divisive politics. It is the Congress which has been doing it for several years. They are still hoping to continue to do it. I wish them good luck. The people don't believe them anymore. The largest number of MPs from that community are from the BJP today.
And yet, Mr. Goyal, the Prime Minister in his interview to you and I did have a reprimand, a public reprimand for loose talk, including by members of the party and of the Sangh Parivar. So there have been divisive comments that have also come. We can discuss the Congress separately, but by some leaders of the Sangh Parivar, and the PM has acknowledged it. Why does, forget anybody else, the PM has acknowledged it.
Sangh Parivar is an independent organization. We don't decide what they say or don't say. The BJP, there were one or two stray instances which were immediately took task and were not repeated. I wish somebody could also tell the leadership of the opposition party, but I suspect there's nobody in that party to speak to their leadership, that they should not try to divide society.
Okay, I want you to come back and speak about the big picture on the economy. And I ask you this because there's a lot of concern today that the monsoon forecast is not looking good. At the same time, you had the RBI governor also join the chief economic advisor in saying that this new way of computing GDP may not exactly reflect an accurate picture. You know, Arvind Subramaniam said this to me in an interview. He said that numbers are puzzling. Mr. Goyal, because you understand this sector so well, what is your sense of these new growth figures? Because, you know, even Sumant Sinha, he made a very interesting comment to NDTV. He said the 7.5% feels like a very ho-hum kind of situation. To be honest, 7.5% is feeling more like 4.5%. This is Sumant Sinha's statement.
Well, he's entitled to his comments. He's a learned person. But as far as I'm concerned, these are statistics that the Central Statistical Organization takes out. In the past, we have had instances where they have gone wrong both upwards and downwards. It happened in the UPA. I believe that's one area which will probably need to be set right very soon so that we can have a more robust mechanism of data collection. It's something in which we will need support from the people and the producing sectors of India, because there is a lag between the data that is given to the statistical organization and when they are giving out this data to the public.
Yeah.
If this lag could be reduced and people become more responsive to give timely data, I think we can have much more accurate figures.
Let me ask you, one of the big things that your government is banking on is the GST, and yet this parliament session you couldn't get it through. Do you believe you'll be able to get it through realistically, given that the opposition may strategize otherwise? And also talk a little bit about this 1% additional tax under the GST that the states will be allowed to levy, that the chief economic advisor himself to the government is questioning.
Well, as regards the passing of the GST, it's not about whether I believe it can be passed. You will have to ask the leader of the opposition in the Rajya Sabha, where they stalled the passage of this bill despite giving an assurance that it will be passed, who stood up in the House, requested that it be sent to a select committee and assured that in the first day of the next session a report will be presented and they will help to pass the GST bill. It's a bill in which there's support across the political spectrum. All the states have finally come on board, which was not happening earlier. All the states, including the Congress states, want it to happen.
Yeah.
They trust Prime Minister Modi. They are happy that for the first time, a government is actually compensating the states. We are also taking the liability of compensating the UPA regime commitments, which they had not fulfilled over so many years. And Finance Minister Jaitley has started compensating states for that loss.
What about the
which
tax?
Has only ensured.
What about the 1% additional tax?
As regards the 1% tax, it's not a compulsory tax. The states have an ability to put that tax if they find that they are losing out on revenue because of their not being a consuming state, and therefore they have the ability to put it. I think the competitive spirit in which states are competing now will ensure that the states remain on a level playing field.
Let me ask you in the end, I want to take you back to the coal auctions because it is something I know your ministry looks at as one of the big achievements in cleaning up the system. You must have seen some of the editorials that are questioning whether the windfall is actually real-time money, making the point that it's only going to accrue after 30 years and saying that the government has kind of misled the public in suggesting that there's a 2 lakh crore recovery. So just your thoughts on that as we close.
Barkat, there's always an apple-to-apple comparison. When I say that we increased coal production by 32 million tons this year, we are juxtaposing it to the increase over 4 years of 31 million tons. Right? Yeah. So it took them 4 years to add 31. I added it in 10 months. When we say we increased power generation by 8.4%, it's compared to last year. When we say transmission capacity increased 22,100 circuit kilometers, and it's the highest growth in Indian history, it's compared to what was happening in earlier years. Similarly, the CAG Vinod Rai had highlighted to the people of India in his report that because of the UPA and Congress government largely giving out large quantities of coal mines free of charge, and the process was quite arbitrary and did not have transparency in it, there was a windfall gain of 1,86,000 crores to certain select corporates, which included members of the political party then in power.
Yes.
What we have done is we have carried that same process after the Supreme Court cancelled it through a transparent e-bidding, e-auction. Obviously, the revenue has to be taken on an apple-to-apple basis.
Okay.
Vinod Rai had calculated the 30-year loss. As the coal gets mined, the payment is made. This payment will be made as the coal gets mined year on year. It's not after 30 years. It's every year going forward.
Mr. Goyal, but you know the State Bank...
So it's an apple-to-apple comparison.
Got it.
We have exceeded the loss that Vinod Rai had said.
Got it. But in the big...
So the editorials need to relook their facts and figures.
Okay, but you know, the chairperson, the chairwoman of the State Bank of India today said government needs to start spending. One of the challenges before you today is you wanted to keep your fiscal deficit in check, the government is not spending, and the private sector is still being too cautious, not bringing in the money. You know, the business cycle hasn't picked up. That's reflected in the industrial growth figures. That's reflected in even the manufacturing figures. Isn't this putting a question mark on the Make in India promise?
Barka, I'm very happy to inform you that going forward, I'm looking at nearly 100,000 crores, 1 lakh crores of transmission lines being bid out in the next 6 to 8 months. I see a big rollout of the LED program, which will add business to Indian manufacturers. We have a huge technology upgradation happening in Coal India, on the back of which in the first 2 months alone, April and May of 2015, Coal India has increased production by 11.8%. Have you ever heard that before? The so-called laggard at one point of time producing 11.8% more coal in the first 2 months of the year. We are investing heavily in renewable energy, and both private sector and government both are putting in huge amounts in renewable energy. We are setting up 38,000 crores of green energy corridors. So there's so much investment happening, particularly in our sectors, that I see a lot of business coming out, a lot of spending from the government, a lot of interest in the private sector to come into the power sector.
All right, we leave it there. Piyush Goyal, Union Minister and one of the more prominent and articulate faces of this government. Thank you so much. Pleasure to have you on the Buck Stops here today. And that is it on the program tonight. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.